That's usually when I get the most. Before we go any further, remember this?
Jeff Bryant at Sardis, he had a mass on his lungs removed. Anyway, got sick in the night last night, spiked real high fever.
Mm,
And he went to, doctor sent him to the hospital today, but they give him some antibiotics and sent him home.
mm,
Anyway, remember, Dan, that's gotta be stressful.
sure.
What happened to, I know he went to the hospital.
He had a mass removed from his lungs a few weeks ago, and then he spiked real high temperature last night. Anyway, and they ended up sending him home. So I don't know, but he went up here. So. But y'all remember them, he and his wife.
Remember this. Anybody else?
And a lot of people know Beverly Sanders. She works in the doctor's office at Evan Johnson's. She has a mass or tumor or something in his back here.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, she started some kind of radiation this week, and they don't think it, if I understood it right, they don't think it's cancerous, but at the location that it's in, if they can't get the growth under control, it could be very bad because of the location that it's in. So y'all remember Beverly?
Remember that. Guy that I work with, he works down the hall from me, but his name's Dane Dalkey. Anyway, they found his mom. She'd passed away in her sleep, the night before last. So remember that family. Also, one of my students, and I hadn't said much about this, even to Sonia, when I've said anything to her. But anyway, she had cancer back in April. Her name's Grace, and good Christian girl. I mean, just really sweet, smart. But anyway, she has been real sick for a while. Every time she eats, she gets sick, and she goes to talk to a doctor on Friday. They're going to do some scans. They've done some blood work. Her cancer may have come back, may not have. They don't know what it is yet, but We may have read some of these verses, and I'll be real honest. I couldn't remember exactly where we got to 2 weeks ago. I figured it wouldn't hurt to have one more time, right? If we did do it. You ain't the only one, brother. But we're going to start in verse 11 of chapter 4 of James. Verse 11 of chapter 4 of James. James chapter 4, verse 11. Turn that on. Yeah. Says there in verse 11, it says, "Do not speak evil of one another, brethren. He who speaks evil of a brother and judges his brother speaks evil of the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge. There is one lawgiver who is able to save and destroy. Who are you to judge another?" And I want to stop right there because I think the writer kind of changes, topics a little bit. So I want to talk about this just a minute. Because when he says there, don't speak evil of one another, because if you speak evil, he who speaks evil of the law, he who speaks evil of a brother and judges his brother speaks evil of the law and judges the law. So in your mind, when you read that, what do you think, what does that mean to you when it says if you speak evil of your brother, you're being a judge of the law? And why is it bad to be a judge of the law? Okay. It does. And if we're speaking evil, are we necessarily showing love? No. Now, I've heard people say, well, we're just having a prayer request. We're making a prayer request. We're just going to tell her. No, that don't qualify. Why does that make us a judge of the law? Why does speaking evil against somebody make us a judge of the law? It is in the New Testament. It's not necessarily part of the Old Testament per se, but yeah. When we take the law into our own hands, I think a lot of times, we start going on our own thoughts, our own desires, and our own opinions. And the reality is when it comes to God, it should really be His word, His law, and His opinion. And it's real easy for us to kind of, and I don't think it's intentional, but we almost kind of sit in the judgment seat and we think our opinion matters, especially in today's world. How many times do we, and I don't want to get on the message Sunday too much, but Lord willing, on Sunday we're going to talk about how, just because we feel that our righteousness does not come from what we think is right. It's not about what I think. It's not about what you think. But somewhere down the line, we have got enough self-respect and we've got enough self-influence that we think we know the answer to the problems. And we don't. We don't know the answers to the problems. Now, experience teaches us wisdom, but God gives us those experiences so we'll know what to do next time, right? But on our own, I don't know just what to do without going back to the experiences that I've had. And none of us do. Some of us may be able to rationalize and kind of think through some things, but for the most part, we have to go through stuff. And when we take the experiences out and we try to judge something that we've never experienced, we're a fool. We're a fool. Or we can be, I should say it that way. We can be a fool because we get to this place we'll live in self-righteousness. And the devil, that's where he wants us to be. That's where he wants us to be. And, he continues there. He says, but if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge. There is one lawgiver, and who is able to save and destroy? Who is able to save and destroy? Who are you to judge another? and I'm gonna say this, and I want to be careful that I say it correctly because I don't want it to be, I don't want it to come across as, and I don't think this is intentional, but I think sometimes we come across as we can be God in a certain situation and and make the direction that we need to go. And in some cases, we come across as the lawgiver, or we try to be the lawgiver when that's never going to be our job. Now, I think there's a line that we have to be careful. There's situations that we all are put in where we have to make a decision. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But if we start making decisions on our own merit instead of going to God and going and seeking His will and seeking His ways, that's where we become this judge. You know, when the Bible tells us to judge not lest you be judged, because you'll be judged by that same judgment. When it tells us that, what He's saying is you're judging people, you're expecting them to be one thing, but you're not holding up your end of the deal. You're saying it's wrong for them, but right for you. And that's a sin. And he gets on down here and later he says that. I've wrote this note in the margin. I said, do we judge the process of God? Do we judge the process of God? I think we all do too. Question. It's not fair. We do. Maybe not judge like we would judge somebody. Don't misunderstand me. Why are you doing this? And what happens if we spend all of our time questioning what has happened, questioning the situations, questioning what's going to be, what's going to happen next? Most of the time, that's going to make us bitter. Most of the time, that's going to put us in a place where we're going to, and it's kind of like that hole. You keep digging it, you're just burying yourself. And you really can't dig yourself out of a hole. That's difficult. But when we seek God's will, we seek His way, and we seek in prayer what He wants to do, and we don't judge, the directions that He gives us will help us in situations that maybe we didn't even see as difficult situations at the time. I've seen people, and you know, God will give us spiritual discernment that didn't come on our own. He'll give us spiritual discernment that we didn't have on our own. Wake us up in the middle of the night, and we'll find out something we need to know. Go to a particular place, follow His leadership, and we'll see something that answers the question. And He will give us those opportunities. But when we try to make our own path, when we try to seek, you know, His way, or seek our way instead of His, then we're setting up ourselves up for failure. And if we're not careful, we're going to get so busy judging the way of God. Let's just be honest. Sometimes God's way is the hardest. Why does that have to happen sometimes? And it's in those hard times we learn those lessons that are necessary. And if we don't learn those lessons that are necessary, we're never going to get to the place where we can have the fruit of the Spirit. You understand?
We're really good at saying God's will be done.
Mm-hmm.
Right down to it. You won't always want His will.
Right. That's it. How many of you, and I'm going to be honest, and I don't want to talk about the election, but this is on everybody's mind. I think it'll kind of drive a point home. How many of you wish we'd had a different outcome in the 2020 election? I did, and I got mad. I'll be real honest. I got mad. But do you read? Somebody posted this today. Said if Trump had won in 2020, he would have went to a Democratic House and a Republican Senate, and he would have been impeached again, probably. But think about the lessons that our country has learned in the last 4 years. Now, some people will say, well, we hadn't learned nothing except whatever. And that's in the eye of the beholder, and I can't make anybody learn a lesson. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But the place that our country is going to be now, in my opinion, is going to be much stronger and it's much better. Because now not only do we have what seems to be, and if I'm wrong, what seems to be a person who respects and honors Christian liberties, not only do we have that, we also have a Republican Senate and probably a Republican House to support everything he's doing. So we're not going to have a lame duck president, which we basically had for the last 8 years, even when Trump was in there the first time. There's always been contention. But if we hadn't have gone through the last 4 years, we couldn't appreciate today near as much. And some people will say, well, because we've had the last 4 years, whichever side of the aisle you're on, we've had the last 4 years, now I don't understand. The lessons that we learn come in different forms, right? And whatever the case may be, we have to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that when the good Lord puts us in a situation and we don't know how to handle it and we don't know what to do, you know, that scripture, it comes to my mind, be still and know that I am God. I'll go ahead and confess, I'm terrible at that. I'm not good at being still.
Take time and be holy.
Yeah, I ain't good at that either. But yet, so many times when God puts us in a place, we really have to focus on what He's telling us, focusing on what He wants us to be, not necessarily what the outcome that we prefer. And sometimes, we're talking about a presidential election. You know, sometimes it's a lot more personal than that. And we have to take, but we still kind of have to say, Lord, I don't like the situation. I don't like where I'm at. Don't like what's going on. But God, I am still going to trust you. I'm not going to judge your ways. I'm not the lawgiver. I'm not the waymaker. You are. You are.
Mentioned the election last night and this morning. My will was done.
Sure.
And I hope it's the Lord's will. I think it was.
Sure, yeah.
And on that note, I think we've been given a reprieve, and I think we had better take care, take full advantage of it.
Sure. And I want to be sure, you know, that's the way I feel too, Roger. But there's some people that don't feel that way. Now, they're justified to feel that way. I'm not saying anybody's right or wrong. Don't misunderstand what I mean. I don't want to come across as being a judgmental person about because I may have got my way, okay? But whatever situation we're in, the will of God, we have to focus on the will of God. We have to focus on that. Now, part of that is going to give us peace, even in a storm. Because if we're trusting God, we're going to know He's going to take care of it, okay? But if we constantly question, and I'm going to use the word judge just because it's in the Scripture, and judge the situation God's put us in, it's going to make us bitter. It's not going to make us better. And that bitterness will grow and grow and grow. And it'll get to the point where it'll overtake us. I've seen people that have been in bitter situations. You know, there's a lot of people that don't come back to church because they got hurt. Well, the reality is I don't care what church it is. As much as I love this church, we're not perfect. We're not perfect. We're fallible. It's got me in it, so it can't be perfect, you know? There's not a I was waiting on that. There's not a church that's going to do everything right. And that's where we have to be really careful that if God puts us in a situation, that we are willing to learn the lessons that He is teaching us. And not be self-righteous, not be all these things. And I can stand up here and say, yeah, this is what we should do. But when it comes to my house, it hurts. Let's just be honest. It hurts. I'd be lying to you if me and Zelina both, we went home for it, and I said, I ain't going back. And she'll say, me either. You know? Not here. Not here. We ain't got that point here. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You know, we there's times when you don't like the situation you're in. You can have the best job in the world, but you know what? There's days you don't want to go back and do it again.
Oh, I quit every morning.
That's why it's called first. God, I don't care how good it is, it can be a first.
Right. But we always need. I'm confident that in any situation that we're in, that God, well, He says it, He's working it for our good. He's working it for our good. It may not seem good right now, but it will be eventually, because that's His will, that's His way. And anyway, y'all tell me what y'all think.
It's not that it just may not seem good, it may not be.
Sure, exactly.
I think we talked about that several weeks ago, but
Yeah.
sometimes, everybody's mind is on politics right now.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, if you look at the last 4 years, there's nobody in this room that's gonna say, yeah, it's been absolutely wonderful the last 4 years.
Right.
But there was a reason.
Mm-hmm.
There is a reason that what happened in November of 2020 happened.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it was to contrast what we're about to go into, I don't know. But I don't look at that as a good thing. But I think he can make it good.
Mhm.
The things, who was it? Was it Joseph? Said the things that you meant for evil, God made good.
Mm-hmm.
So we are a very, 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 very spoiled society, and when we are slightly inconvenienced, it's the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the way that's 99.9% of the time, that's not how it actually works.
Mm-hmm. You ever thought that sometimes God might put you in a situation where they get your order wrong, or they overcharge you just to see how you react? Or they steal an air tank off your porch? You ever thought about that? No, that wasn't. I mean, I can think of times whenever they've got my order wrong, and I want to go back in there and say, "You got my order wrong."
You better take my order now.
And then I think, well, that's one of my kids at school. If they see my attitude, it's going to be real bad tomorrow. There's a reason that we go through things. And sometimes it's to teach us to keep our mouth shut. Sometimes it's to teach us to accept the things that we cannot change, and to be willing to change, the courage to change the things we can. And let's just be honest, sometimes it's just not worth it.
I can be having a really bad day or something, and all I have to do is go look at my mom and say, "Mama, not see how good I got it."
Sure.
Or you can be, having a pity party and you see a St. Jude commercial.
Yeah.
So we're really a spoiled society that
Mm-hmm.
we're just, like Timothy said, if we don't get our way, we think the world's coming to an end. But yet, there's people suffering all around us.
Sure.
We're really evil.
Yeah.
The way we think, I mean,
We're flesh.
it's just,
Yeah.
we really should be on our knees asking forgiveness for even feeling like we're entitled to anything.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
I've gotten better at it, but used to, like, it would be friends or people I knew, and, like, I knew that they weren't doing right in life. Not that it was for me to judge, but I would know that they wouldn't be doing right. And it seemed like every puzzle piece just fell in line for them.
Yeah.
And have you ever,
Been there.
what do you want from me? Why?
Why, Lord? I'm with you. Same thing, yes.
Judge them like, why are you
Mm-hmm.
You only see what they want you to see.
Yeah.
I had that feeling plenty of times.
Yeah.
Especially with what we went through, I was like, why are there those people that can talk them out like that?
Sure.
And then
Right.
it happens to us.
Right.
And that would kind of be judging, I mean, not necessarily the law, but I mean,
I get it.
I mean, that's his will, whether it be his will for me or his will for you.
Yeah.
It's not for me to question why it looks to me that his will for you is better than.
Yeah. Right.
Like I said the other week, there's something about you that ticks me off.
It's crazy. Well, it's not crazy.
But I have gotten better at that. That was something on my list, and I have.
Well, hey, there you go. There you go.
So now I kind of just try to pay attention to my own page road and not worry about.
Sure. Yep.
Well, you just stop and look at the blessings that you do have. They might not even be.
I think it's
They're totally unaware of it.
Maturity thing. Okay. Okay. Tell me what you mean.
I think you go into,
Okay.
you're not, and I know we'll never get to perfect, but you're sure not perfect when you start.
Sure.
You have all of these emotions that you don't know what to do with, and you express those emotions. like
Sure.
critics sometimes.
All right.
And from that, we get hurt, and then we realize we shouldn't have done that the way we did. And the next time, we'll think about it. It's a maturity thing.
It is.
You grow into this.
When you saying that, this is kind of I guess a funny thing about that, but I realize more and more every day that I'm a lot like my daddy. Sonia can probably go ahead and say an amen to that one too. I'm a lot like him
You're a lot like your daddy was at
at 50 years old.
50, when your daddy was 50 years
Yeah.
old. Now you're not like your daddy. You're
Oh.
just like your mama.
Anyway, I know.
That's not a bad thing.
It could be. You don't know. You don't know everything about my mama.
Not saying it was, no.
But I was thinking when you said that, and I know I am notorious for leaving like my phone here, my keys here, my backpack here, my lunch here, my glasses here, and I'm running all over it. And I'll like go and go to the door, and then I'll go back and go to the door, and then I'll go here and go to the door. Here, and so I was like, what'd you forget now? My watch. What'd you forget? My glasses. What did you forget now? My keys. And I'm making trips for everything. But now I've watched my daddy, because my daddy, and he'll stand there, he said, now, I got my watch, I got my glasses, I got my keys, I got my wallet, I got everything I need, am I ready to go? He's like, and when you said that about maturity, that's what I thought about. There's a time in life when if we'll just stop and pay attention and think about, maybe like as Roger said to me, the blessings that we have. Or stop and think about what we need. God, I have what I need. Here's what I want. And when we get to the place where we really take the time to think through and slow down. And you're right, it is maturity. You're right, it is maturity. Let's read the next few verses to the rest of the chapter. It says, come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a city, spend a year there, buy and sell and make a profit. Whereas you do not know what will happen tomorrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we shall live or do this or that. But now you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. Therefore, to him who knows to do good and does it not, to him it is sin. Now, I'm kind of... And how many of you have a vacation plan for next year already? We don't have one either, but I know where I want to go. I know. I've got some intentions of going to some places. I've got some ideas of things I want to do next year. You look at my calendar, there's several little dots on my calendar. This is what's going to happen here. This is what's going. I got a plan of things I want to do. Now, is it okay to have a plan? Sure, it's okay to have a plan, but it's not okay to be dictated and determined by that plan instead of what God has in store for you. Because that's what he says when he says, if the Lord wills. If the Lord wills. Reese will be 21, the 18th of this month. You know? So I probably need to put something on my calendar every day. Pray for Reese, pray for Reese, pray for Reese, pray for Reese. I do that anyway. But, it's so easy for us to get caught up in our own actions and our own intentions and our own desires that we forget, okay, God, I might not be able to do that. I might not be able to go this or do this or say this or whatever. I might be in a place where I can't. And he used a pretty strong word. All such boasting. I don't ever really think about that as boasting. All such boasting is evil. All such boasting is evil. We have to be careful that we don't slip into the evil avenues of our own self-desires. Slip into the avenues that are going to drive us away from God instead of to God. Because they're there. They're present if we let them.
I think the whole thing boils down to, are you thinking about yourself? When you think about other people, what they feel?
Hmm?
Or you just all really.
Yeah. What should it be about?
I'm sorry?
What should it be about?
It's not about us. It's
Shouldn't be. You're right.
the other person, what they need, what they desire, what they don't know that they need.
Right.
What you can do just by your behavior to help those people
Right. Right. That's right.
or hurt them.
Or hurt them. And without even meaning to. Without even meaning to. Chapter 5, come now, you rich, weep and howl. Come now, you rich. Weep and howl for your miseries that are coming upon you. Your riches are corrupted, your garments are moth-eaten, your gold and silver are corroded, and their corrosion will be witness against you, and will eat your flesh like fire. You have heaped up treasures in the last days. Indeed, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, cry out. And the cries of the reapers have reached the ears of the Lord Sabaoth. You have lived on the earth in pleasure and luxury. You have fattened your hearts as in a day of slaughter. You have condemned, you have murdered the just. He does not resist you. Now, I don't believe in karma, but I do believe if you sow bad seed, you'll reap bad fruit. I do believe that. And I think this is what this is talking about. If you have evil gain, it's going to testify against you. If you lie, that lie is going to come back. If you live in sin, it's going to come back to bite you. When the Bible says the wages of sin is death, it'll almost kill you. And if you stay in it, it will kill you. If not physically, spiritually. And you'll get to this place to where you're just like these rich. You're more interested in the riches, and you'll do whatever you got to do to be in that situation, to be just like that, to look just like that. Anyway, anybody else got anything? It's about almost 20 after 7. Anybody got anything before we dismiss? Power, yes. Okay. Most of the time those two run together, don't they? Most of the time those two run together. Yeah. Yeah, sure. No. You're right. Right.
It's gonna show, a lot of times you don't know what you got till it's gone.
That's true.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Anybody else have any comments or questions or anything? Except Timothy, he can't ask questions. I'm just kidding. It's a joke. It was a joke.
Well, physically, I think I've got everything I need. I don't have everything I want. Spiritually, I need a whole lot more.
Sure.
Would like to have more. It's my fault for not having.
Sure. Knowing's half the battle, ain't it? Tim, would you lead us in prayer tonight?